Stop blaming your brain for being slow. The truth is, you were never actually taught how to learn. Until now. Today, I'm handing you the exact scientific map to master any skill, from English to rocket science, faster than you ever imagined. To join us on this journey of growth and never miss a lesson that could change your life, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am so glad you are here with me today. If you are listening to this right now, it means one very important thing. It means there is something you want to learn. Maybe you want to speak English fluently. Maybe you want to be confident in public speaking. Maybe it is coding, or business, or playing music, or anything else. But I know that somewhere deep inside, you have felt a certain frustration. You ask yourself, why can't I learn fast like other people? Why do I keep forgetting things? Why does learning feel so hard and heavy for me? And maybe, worst of all, a quiet voice whispers, maybe I am just not smart enough. Let me tell you the honest truth. That voice in your head is lying to you. You are not broken. You are not dumb. You are not slow. The truth is simply that you were never taught how learning actually works. We live in a world where people are forced to memorize things they do not care about. Then they are punished for forgetting. Then they are judged for not being intelligent enough. The truth is that our entire system of learning is upside down. We were never shown how the human brain actually learns. We were never shown how to break skills down into small pieces. We were never shown how to make learning stick fast and make it enjoyable. We were taught to suffer, not to understand. We were told to repeat, not to rethink. But today, all of that changes. This story, this video, is not made to impress you. It is made to free you. I want to take away the shame. I want to erase the confusion. I want to give you, finally, a real map to learning anything. So, if you have ever said to yourself, I can't learn this, then please stay with me. Because the problem isn't you. The problem is the method you have been using. And I am going to give you the best method, step by step. There is no magic here, and there are no shortcuts. These are just real, powerful, practical methods proven by science, experience, and success. Let's begin this journey together. And remember, this story will not only teach you how to learn anything, it will also help you improve your English while you listen. This brings us to step 1. You must decide exactly what you want to learn. The number one mistake people make when they try to learn something is that they are too vague. They say things like, I want to learn English, or I want to get better at drawing, or I want to be good at marketing. But my friends, that is not a goal. That is a wish. And the brain does not respond to wishes. It responds to clarity. Think of your brain like a GPS in a car. If you just type somewhere nice into the map, it does not work. The car does not know where to go. But if you type, I want to speak English confidently with native speakers in 6 months, suddenly your brain says, got it. Let's go. Let's say you want to learn English. Saying, I want to learn English is too big. It is too vague. It is too general. Here is how to make it specific. You could say, I want to master 10 daily conversation topics this month. Or, I want to understand 80% of an English movie without subtitles. Or, I want to confidently introduce myself in under 60 seconds. That is real learning. Because now your brain knows exactly where to aim. Why does this work? The brain is a goal-driven machine. When it has a clear outcome, It activates something called the reticular activating system. This is a filter in your brain that says, "This is important. Focus here. Remember this." That is why people who are clear learn fast, and people who are vague stay stuck. So before you even begin learning, ask yourself, what exactly do I want to be able to do? What does success look like in 30 days? Can I describe this goal like I am explaining it to a 5-year-old child? If you cannot answer that, pause everything. Because the first step of learning is not books. It is not watching YouTube. It is not buying a course. It is sitting down and deciding exactly what you want to learn and what success looks like in your mind. Once you do this, you go from confusion to precision. You go from noise to signal. You go from, "I hope I learn," to, "I will learn this." And that is the beginning of unstoppable learning. Now we move to step 2. Deconstruct the skill like a tree. You do not learn a forest. You learn a leaf, then a branch, then the tree. Let's say your goal is now clear. For example, I want to be able to give a 3-minute presentation in English. That is perfect. But here is what most people do next. They just start practicing the whole skill over and over again. They repeat it. They struggle. They feel overwhelmed. And they give up. Why? Because they tried to learn the whole tree at once instead of breaking it down into small, digestible parts. Imagine learning English speaking. Here is the wrong way. You watch random videos, you memorize full speeches, and you get frustrated when you forget. Here is the right way. You deconstruct it like a tree. The roots are vocabulary. The trunk is sentence structure. The branches are topics, like introducing yourself, asking questions, or telling stories. The leaves are voice tone, confidence, speed, and pronunciation. So, instead of learning everything at once, you isolate and master one part at a time. For days 1 to 3, just learn how to introduce yourself. For days 4 to 6, just learn how to talk about your hobbies. For days 7 to 9, just practice asking questions. Each sub-skill is small, learnable, and measurable. And once you master the roots and the branches, the full tree starts to grow automatically. Why is this so powerful? Because the brain learns faster through chunking. Breaking big concepts into smaller chunks helps your memory, your confidence, and your speed. It also reduces anxiety because instead of saying, "I have to learn this huge thing," you say, "I am just working on this one leaf today." That is calming. That is focused. That is how winners learn. Do you want another real-life example? Let's say you are learning guitar. Instead of trying to play a whole song immediately, break it into parts. The roots are the chords. The trunk is the transition between chords. The branches are rhythm and strumming. The leaves are speed, expression, and improvisation. Then spend 3 days just mastering one chord. Then spend another 3 days mastering transitions. Then spend 4 days on rhythm. By the time you play the full song, it feels natural because you built it from the roots up. So remember this, learning is like growing a tree. Start with the root, then the branch, then the leaves. Don't try to grow the whole forest in one day. Step 3 is to use first principle thinking, not blind copying. If you do not understand something deeply, you will always be a slave to someone who does. Let's get honest for a second. What do most people do when they want to learn something? They open YouTube. They find the top video. They copy what that person is doing, word for word. They memorize the formulas, the lines, and the routines. And then they feel smart. Until life throws something slightly different at them. And suddenly, they freeze. Why? Because they never understood the why behind the thing. They just copied the what. Blind copying feels productive, but it kills real learning. It builds dependence, not intelligence. It means this: don't start with, how do others do it? Start with, what do I absolutely know to be true? Then build up from there. This is how Elon Musk learned rocket science without being a rocket scientist. He didn't say, how do other companies build rockets? He said, what is a rocket made of? How much do those materials cost? Why does everyone say this must be so expensive? What is the real physics behind it? He asked, what is the truth beneath the method? And from there, he reinvented how rockets are made. Here is the wrong way. Copy and paste. You think, this is what my boss says on a call, so I will say the same thing. Here is the right way, using first principle thinking. Why do we open with a question instead of a pitch? Why does the client always pause here? What is the real fear behind their hesitation? How can I solve that before they even speak? Now, you are not learning sales scripts. You are learning human psychology. That is deeper. That is permanent. Because once you start using first principle thinking, you become someone who doesn't just learn fast. You become someone who can create your own method, your own ideas, and your own breakthroughs. You go from how do they do it to here is how I will do it, and here is why. And that is the beginning of mastery. Before we continue to the next step, I want to pause for just a moment. We have just talked about rethinking how we learn, about not just copying others but understanding the why beneath things. It is a powerful shift, isn't it? If you have a friend, a colleague, or a family member who is struggling to learn something new, or who feels stuck in that cycle of just copying and failing, maybe consider sharing this story with them later. Sometimes, just hearing that there is a different way to think can be the key that unlocks everything for someone. We are all on this journey of growth together, and sharing knowledge is the best way to help us all move forward. Now, let's look at step 4. Spend twice the time doing, not watching. You do not learn to swim by watching a video. You learn by getting wet. Let's destroy another lie of modern learning. The lie is, if I consume enough information, I will become smart. No. If that were true, everyone with a YouTube account would be a millionaire. Everyone who watched gym videos would have six-pack abs. Everyone who listens to English podcasts would be fluent. But they are not. Because watching does not equal learning. Listening does not equal fluency. Reading does not equal transformation. Here is the real truth. You learn when you implement. You grow when you apply. And you must spend twice the time doing something as you do watching or reading about it. If you spend 30 minutes watching a video, you should spend 60 minutes doing what that video said. Otherwise, your brain just becomes a storage unit of untested theory, not a learning machine. Let's say you watch a 20-minute English lesson. Most people nod, feel smart, close the video, and forget everything in 2 days. But what should you do? Pause the video every 1 to 2 minutes. Say the sentences out loud. Record yourself speaking. Compare it to the speaker. Use those phrases in real conversations that day. Write down 2 to 3 things you learned and repeat them at night. That is how you make knowledge enter the muscle. Imagine you are learning graphic design. You watch 3 tutorials on Photoshop. Instead of watching all of them back to back, do this. Watch 5 minutes. Pause. Open Photoshop. Try it yourself. Make mistakes. Fix it. Try again. Then re-watch with your mistake in mind. You will learn 5 times faster than someone who watches 10 videos and never touches the software. When you consume, you activate passive memory. When you do, you activate procedural memory. And procedural memory is the memory of real skills. That is the memory that stays. That is the memory that changes your life. Watching gives you the map. Doing teaches you the terrain. And the terrain is always different from the map. If you want to learn anything, spend less time watching and more time walking. Because no one ever learned to ride a bike by watching someone else pedal. They learned by falling and standing up and trying again. Your brain needs movement, not just motivation. Step 5 is to use the 10,000-hour rule wisely. You have probably heard it. To master anything, you need 10,000 hours of practice. And that is true, but it is also very misunderstood. Most people think, okay, so if I just do this for 10 years, I will become a master. Wrong. If you practice the wrong way for 10,000 hours, you do not become a master. You become deeply average. Let me give you a real example. How many hours have you spent driving in your life? Maybe 5,000? Maybe 10,000? Maybe more. But here is the truth. You are not improving anymore. You are not becoming a Formula One driver. You are not learning new skills. You are just doing the same thing automatically. That is not mastery. That is repetition without improvement. And this is the mistake most people make. They clock the hours, but they do not improve the skill. They confuse time with transformation. The original idea came from psychologist Anders Ericsson, not Malcolm Gladwell, who made it famous. Ericsson didn't say, just do something for 10,000 hours. He said, you need 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. That means you need feedback. You need to be slightly uncomfortable. You need to measure improvement. You need to fix mistakes in real time. That is the secret. It is not just practice. It is deliberate practice. Let's say you want to become a top-level chef. The wrong way is what most people do. Cook the same 3 recipes over and over, use the same ingredients, stick to what you already know, and avoid risk or discomfort. You will get good, but you won't grow. The right way is deliberate practice. Every week, try a dish that is harder than last week. Use a new spice or cooking method. Ask someone to rate your food. Compare it with a restaurant version. Fix what you did wrong. Keep a cooking journal. Now your hours build skill. You are not just repeating, you are refining. You are evolving. Your brain enters a state called deep learning. When the task is just hard enough to stretch you, but not so hard that it breaks you. This is called the Goldilocks zone of learning. Too easy means boredom. Too hard means frustration. Just right means mastery. So every day ask yourself, is today's task slightly harder than yesterday? Did I challenge my brain today? Did I improve anything, even by 1%? If yes, then your 10,000 hours will build mastery. If no, then you are just wasting time in a loop. Don't just spend time. Invest focus, track improvement, fix mistakes, and stretch yourself. That is how 10,000 hours becomes transformation. That is how amateurs become masters. Step 6 is the 20-hour kickstart formula. Now, let's flip the mindset. What if you don't want to be a master right now? What if you just want to get good enough to start? Good enough to hold a conversation, play a basic song, write basic code, cook your first real dish, or launch your first video. That is where this step comes in. This is called the 20-hour rule, made popular by Josh Kaufman, and it is simple. With just 20 hours of focused, smart effort, you can go from 0 to surprisingly good at almost anything. Not world-class, not expert, but good enough to start. And starting is what 99% of people never do, because 20 hours equals about 45 minutes a day for 1 month. That is enough to build basic muscle memory. That is enough to conquer initial fear. That is enough to go from confused to competent. It is the momentum formula. It turns a mountain into a staircase. Let's say you have never touched a piano before. You could wait years to become a musician. Or you could say, I want to play one simple, beautiful song in 30 days. Here is the plan. For hours 1 to 2, learn finger placement and notes. For hours 3 to 5, practice the left hand and the right hand separately. For hours 6 to 9, combine both hands slowly. For hours 10 to 15, add basic timing and rhythm. For hours 16 to 18, record yourself, watch it back, and fix it. For hours 19 to 20, perform for someone, get feedback, and refine. The result? You go from nothing to a real moment of musical joy. In less than a month, you built a skill. You created something beautiful. You proved to your brain, I can learn this, and that belief is fuel for the next skill. Most people fail to learn not because the skill is hard. They fail because they never make it past the first 10 hours. They get stuck in confusion, self-doubt, procrastination, fear of looking stupid, or waiting for motivation. The 20-hour method forces you to say, let's just begin, let's just try. And that first success is addictive. Take a notebook. Write the skill, like photography. Write 20-hour challenge. Make 20 boxes. Each day, tick 1 box after 1 hour of real focused practice. Day by day, box by box, you build something new. And by day 20, you will have a new skill, a new identity, and a new belief in yourself. Mastery takes years, but progress starts today. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for confidence. Don't wait for the perfect plan. Just give yourself 20 hours. You will be shocked at how powerful your brain becomes once you actually start using it. Step 7 is to research deeply on each subtask. So you have defined your goal. You have broken the skill into parts. You have started practicing, watching, and doing. Now here is a question most people never ask. How much do I know about this subtask I am working on? Because most people only research the main topic, not the individual pieces. They say, I want to learn photography. So they search how to be a better photographer. But that is too big. It is like trying to eat a whole elephant in one bite. Let's say you want to bake a perfect chocolate cake. Most people will watch one video, get a recipe, try it once, fail, and feel disappointed. But a smart learner, a deep learner, breaks it down and says, wait, what are the individual subtasks here? Mixing the batter. How do different mixing speeds change the texture? Choosing flour. What is the difference between cake flour and all-purpose flour? Using cocoa. What kind of cocoa gives the richest flavor? Baking temperature. What if I bake at 170 degrees Celsius versus 180 degrees? Frosting techniques. How do professionals make it smooth and glossy? Each of those is a tiny universe of knowledge, and each one has its own experts, techniques, and common mistakes. If you just try the cake without researching these elements, it is like going to war without weapons. But if you spend 15 minutes per sub-skill doing deep research, reading articles, comparing videos, watching failures and successes, your brain builds a library of patterns. And once you see the patterns, you stop guessing. You start knowing. Let's say you want to learn video editing. Most beginners just open a tool and try editing a vlog. But deep learners research each subtask. Cutting. What is the best cutting rhythm for emotional storytelling? Transitions. What is the difference between cinematic cuts versus basic slides? Color grading. What colors make a scene feel warm versus intense versus nostalgic? Sound design. How does background music change audience emotion? Text animation. What fonts increase trust? What animations are most modern? They don't just edit. They study the science and psychology of each part. They watch top editors break down their projects. They pause videos and ask, why did they cut here? Why did they use this shot? What emotion does this create? That is not watching. That is dissecting. Because when you do deep subtask research, you avoid beginner mistakes. You spot shortcuts the pros use. You build faster muscle memory. You stop wasting time fixing the same errors. You learn 10 times more from every hour you practice. Think of it this way. Learning without subtask research is like building a house with your eyes closed. You might hammer nails, but you will never know if the walls are straight. But when you study the parts, you build a foundation that won't fall. Every great learner is also a great researcher, not just of what to do, but of why it works, how it is built, and what makes it fail. Before you do the next task, ask, what is the one thing about this step I haven't researched yet? What do top-level people know about this that I don't? What is the hidden detail most people ignore here? That is how you go from surface level to surgical. That is how you make your learning process bulletproof. Step 8 is to practice in public, not in private. Most people hide when they learn something new. They say, I will show people when I am ready. I will speak when I am perfect. I will launch it after it is flawless. I will post it when it is better. That sounds smart, but it is actually a trap. Because when you wait until you are perfect, you never feel ready. You never finish. You never truly learn. Let's say you are learning sketching or digital art. You have been practicing quietly for months, but no one has ever seen your work. You hide your drawings. You compare yourself to artists on Instagram. And you keep thinking, I will post when I am good enough. But here is the truth. You don't become good enough in private. You become good enough by putting your work into the world, unfinished, imperfect, and real. When you practice in public, 3 things happen. 1, you feel pressure, and pressure builds skill. When someone is watching, your brain sharpens. You speak more clearly. You perform more carefully. You try harder. 2, you get feedback, not fantasy. People will tell you what is working, what confused them, and what moved them. You get real-world reactions, not your own assumptions. 3, you become immune to fear. Every time you share something imperfect, your fear shrinks, your skin thickens, and your courage multiplies. Let's say you want to become a YouTuber. Most people watch tutorials for 6 months, practice filming alone, delete all the drafts, and wait for the perfect camera, the perfect voice, and the perfect idea. But the smart learner says, let me post my first 30-second video today. No edits, no filters, just my honest message. And then they post one again tomorrow, and again the next day. And suddenly, they have learned more in 3 days of public action than they would have in 3 months of private practice. There are other ways to practice in public. Upload your daily progress on Instagram. Share your sketches, even if they are unfinished. Publish your learning notes on a blog. Host a free online class after just 10 days of study. Join a community and do live challenges. Ask friends to review your work honestly. Build in public. Speak in public. Fail in public. Because the fastest learners are not the most talented. They are the most exposed. They are not hiding. They are visible, vulnerable, and brave. Don't hide your learning. Show your journey. Speak before you are fluent. Create before you are ready. Teach before you are perfect. Every skill you are learning right now will multiply 3 times faster the moment you step out of the shadows and practice in the light. This idea of practicing in public can be scary, I know. It takes a lot of courage to show our imperfections. So I want to ask you a question, and I really want you to think about it. What is the one skill or creative project you have been hiding from the world because you are afraid it isn't perfect yet? What is the fear that is actually stopping you from hitting publish or showing a friend? Is it judgment? Is it looking foolish? I would love for you to pause for a moment, reflect on that fear, and then share it in the comments below. Let's be honest with each other. Writing it down is the first step to conquering it. Step 9 is to learn by teaching. Let me ask you something. When you explain something to someone else, don't you suddenly realize what you don't know? That is not a weakness. That is the hidden power of teaching. Teaching isn't just for experts. Teaching is a learning accelerator. When you teach, your brain organizes knowledge, identifies gaps, clarifies concepts, strengthens memory, and boosts confidence. It is like the brain says, "Okay, now we have to explain this. Let's clean up the mess in here first." One of the smartest people to ever live, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman, used a simple trick to learn any subject faster than anyone else. He called it, "Explain it to a child." Here is how it works. Learn the topic normally. Then, pretend you are teaching it to a 12-year-old. Write down your explanation in simple words. If you get stuck, go back and study that part again. Repeat until you can explain the entire thing simply. This is now known as the Feynman technique, and it has helped millions of people around the world master everything from physics to finance. Why does it work? Because complex words hide confusion. But simple explanations reveal understanding. If you can't teach it simply, you haven't really learned it. When you try to teach something, your brain shifts from consumer mode to creator mode. It has to connect all the pieces together. It is forced to check logic, flow, and clarity. It has to recall from memory, not just recognize information. That is what creates real learning. Most people only recognize knowledge, but when you teach, you have to reproduce it from inside your own brain. And that is when the neurons start building highways, not dirt roads. Let's say you are learning personal finance, budgeting, saving, and investing. After watching a video or reading a book, try this. Take a blank page. Pretend your younger brother or sister just asked, "Hey, how do I save money every month?" Now try to explain what budgeting is, why most people overspend, what apps or methods can help, and why saving before spending works better. Use simple words. No jargon. If you get stuck, go back, relearn, and rewrite. Do this once a week with everything you learn. You will multiply your learning speed, your retention, and your clarity by 10. And you will become the type of person who can teach, not just talk. Learning something for yourself is level 1. Teaching it to someone else is level 10. You don't need to be ready. You just need to be honest, curious, and willing to share, because the brain that teaches becomes the brain that masters. Step 10 is to never multitask while learning. Your brain is powerful, but only when it is single-minded. We live in the most distracted generation in history. Notifications, tabs, group chats, scrolling, switching between videos, texts, apps, and thoughts. And then we wonder why we can't remember anything. Let me give you the brutal truth. Multitasking is not a superpower. It is a brain killer. Example: Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, was known for his insane focus. He trained before sunrise. He repeated the same moves hundreds of times, and during training, there was no phone, no talking, no music, just practice. Someone once asked him, "Why don't you mix it up a little? Try new drills." He replied, "Why would I mix it up before I master the basics?" That is the power of monotasking. Laser-locked learning. Science has proven this again and again. Your brain cannot do two complex tasks at the same time. It can only switch between them. And every time it switches, it loses speed, accuracy, and memory strength. This is called cognitive switching cost. Every time you switch from learning to your phone and back to learning, your brain gets slower, your focus gets thinner, your memory gets weaker, and your skill building takes longer. It is like trying to boil water, but you keep turning the flame off every 10 seconds. The pot never boils. Let's say you are learning to code a new programming language. Here is what most people do. Watch a tutorial with 20 tabs open. Reply to messages in between. Get distracted by YouTube recommendations, and try to absorb everything while half listening. That is not learning. That is noise. Here is what a focused learner does. Closes all tabs. Puts the phone in another room. Opens just one screen with the code and the lesson. Sets a 40-minute timer. Does nothing else but code, test, fail, and fix. Then takes a real break. Then comes back again. This method is called deep work, and it is how people learn in hours what others take weeks to grasp. Every year, Bill Gates disappears for a full week. No meetings, no emails, no internet. Just books, notebooks, thinking, and planning. He calls it Think Week. He says it is the most productive learning time of his life because there are zero distractions. He reads, reflects, writes, and creates, all in seconds. That silence is not empty. It is power. You don't need a week. You just need 1 hour a day. Why? With no noise, no switching, and no chaos, that is when the real learning begins. Your brain is like a laser, but only when you stop treating it like a disco ball. Don't try to learn while texting. Don't study while watching TV. Don't build your dream while chasing notifications. Give your brain the gift of full presence, and it will reward you with speed, clarity, and retention beyond your imagination. Step 11 deals with identity and willpower. Become the learner. How many times have you said, "I want to learn this. I just need to stay consistent. I am going to be disciplined this time. I will force myself to do it." And then, after 2 days, you fall off. You get busy. You forget. You feel guilty. And then you say, "I don't have enough willpower." Let me tell you something most people never hear in their life. Willpower is not the problem. Your identity is. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, once shared a powerful story. He said, "Imagine 2 people trying to quit smoking. You offer both a cigarette. The first one says, 'No thanks, I am trying to quit.' The second one says, 'No thanks, I don't smoke.' Now think, Who do you think is more likely to succeed? The second one, because the first person still sees themselves as a smoker who is trying to stop. But the second person, they have already become a non-smoker. That is the power of identity. If you say, I am trying to learn coding, or I am forcing myself to learn guitar, or I need to push myself to read, you are still someone outside the learning identity. But if you shift to, I am a builder, I create with code, or I am a musician, I just haven't performed yet, or I am a reader, I learn something every day. Now your brain doesn't ask, should I do this today? It says, this is who I am. And when identity is aligned, action becomes automatic. Let's say you are learning design. Instead of saying, I am learning design, say, I am a designer. I show up every day to get better at my craft. Then, change your phone wallpaper to your favorite designer quote. Put designer in your social bio. Join a community of other learners. Create a folder called My Work, not Practice Stuff. Share your process like an artist, not like a student. Your identity becomes your engine. No more begging yourself to work. No more guilt. Just natural alignment. Discipline fades. Identity lasts. Stop chasing motivation. Start shaping identity. Because once you become the learner, learning becomes your lifestyle, not a task on your to-do list. Step 12 is to fall in love with boring repetition. Let's tell the hard truth. Every skill you admire, every genius you respect, every talent you wish you had was built on millions of moments of boring repetition. The part that isn't fun, the part that feels slow, the part where nothing exciting is happening, the part that most people skip. But that is the secret. The most successful learners don't run from boredom, they fall in love with it. Bruce Lee, the legendary martial artist, once said, I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. People think he became a legend through variety. No, he became a legend through obsession. The same punch again, the same kick again, the same move again. Day after day, boring, repetitive, and focused until it became muscle memory, until it became instinct, until his body and mind merged. And that is when genius shows up. Every time you repeat a task, your brain strengthens a neural pathway. The task becomes easier to access. You use less energy to perform it. It eventually becomes automatic. This is called myelination. Your brain literally wraps your neurons in a protective coating when you repeat the same task again and again. More repetition equals faster, cleaner brain signals. And that is why top learners don't chase new things. They chase flawless execution of the same thing. Let's say you are learning to play the violin. At first, playing one scale is exciting, but after 3 days, your brain says, this is boring. And that is where 99% of people quit. But the 1%? They smile. They say, now it begins. So you do the same scale again. You play it 20 times, then 50, then 100. Each time you adjust your hand position, you listen to your tone, you control your bow more softly, and you notice details others ignore. By the 100th time, you are not just playing notes, you are building mastery. Track progress even in small numbers. Today, I played this scale 30 times. Tomorrow, 31. Celebrate tiny wins even if no one sees them. Gamify the repetition. Add timers, challenges, or streaks. Visualize who you are becoming while repeating. Train your mind to say, "This is the moment everyone else gives up, and I won't." The path to mastery is paved with boredom, and those who embrace it rise. While the world is chasing novelty, you are building greatness through patience. Fall in love with the repetition. Because every world-class result is hidden inside the moment when you feel like quitting. Step 13 is to use brain anchors. Connect the new with the old. Here is a hidden truth nobody tells you about the brain. Your brain doesn't remember information by itself. It remembers connections. It is not like a hard drive. It is like a spider web. Every new idea needs to stick to something old, or it slips away. That is why when people try to learn something by pure memorization, it doesn't last. They try to force it in. But the brain is asking, where does this fit into what I already know? If you can answer that, learning becomes 5 times faster. If you can't, it becomes 10 times harder. Think of your brain like a giant library. Now imagine you get a brand new book, but you don't label it, categorize it, or place it anywhere. You just toss it into a random room. After 1 week, you want to read it again. But where is it? It is lost. That is what happens when you learn something new without attaching it to something old. Now imagine you write the book's title, place it under a section, alphabetize it, and cross-reference it with other books. Now finding that book becomes instant. That is how your brain works. Learning is not just storing, it is organizing. And organizing means anchoring the new with the old. Let's say you are learning the basics of investing. You come across the term compound interest. Now, if you just try to memorize the formula, you will forget it in 3 days. But if you anchor it to something you already know, like this, compound interest is like planting a tree. At first it grows slowly, but as the years pass, it grows faster and faster, because the leaves and branches also start growing leaves and branches. It is nature's version of financial acceleration. Now, your brain has a visual anchor. Tree equals compound interest. It is connected to your existing knowledge of growth in nature. It makes sense. You will never forget it now. There are many types of brain anchors you can use. Visual anchors link the concept to a shape, color, movement, or pattern. For example, the CPU is the brain of a computer. Story anchors turn it into a mini-story, analogy, or scene. For example, saving money is like building a dam before the flood. Emotion anchors connect it to something that made you laugh, cry, or react. For example, remembering a quote because it hit you hard. Location anchors link it to a place where you studied it. Sequence anchors connect new concepts to previous steps in a routine. Unanchored knowledge disappears, but anchored knowledge sticks, grows, and multiplies. Every time you learn something, ask, what does this remind me of? Where have I seen this pattern before? Can I turn this into a picture, a story, or a comparison? That is how you stop memorizing and start remembering. That is how you build a brain that keeps what it learns. Speaking of remembering and brain tools, I have so many more techniques and stories about how our memory works that I want to share with you in future videos. If you are enjoying this, and you want to make sure you don't miss the next part of our learning journey together, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. I want us to build a whole library of these tools together, so you never feel stuck again. Now, let's move to the final step. Step 14. Track progress like a scientist. Most learners don't track anything. They just hope they are improving. They practice daily, but forget what they did. They read articles, but don't review. They watch tutorials, but don't measure progress. they learn, but never check how far they have come. And then they say, "I don't think I am getting better." That is not failure. That is missing data. Because here is the truth. The brain forgets improvement. But numbers don't. If you want to grow fast, consistently, and with full motivation, you must learn to track like a scientist. Imagine a room that is too cold. You want it to become warmer, so you light a small fire. Now imagine you have no thermometer. You have no way to measure the temperature. You just guess whether it is getting better. Every 10 minutes, you feel the air. Sometimes it feels warmer. Sometimes it doesn't. You get frustrated. You say, "This isn't working." But maybe the room is warming, just slowly. You just can't see it. Now imagine you place a thermometer on the wall. Every 10 minutes, you write the number. Now you can track 16.2 degrees, 16.9 degrees, 17.4 degrees, 18.0 degrees. Even if you don't feel the difference, you can see the improvement. That is what progress tracking does. Let's say you are learning digital art. Here is a simple system. Create a progress folder. Every week, save one drawing. Label it with the date and your mood. Week 3. Portrait practice. Frustrated, but trying shading. Write weekly reflections. What did you learn? What confused you? What improved? Set measurable micro goals. This week, master eye sketching. Next week, practice light source shading for 3 days. Take monthly review days. Compare this month's work to last month's. Identify patterns. I always get stuck with proportions. I will fix that next month. Now your learning becomes a living experiment, not a random effort. This builds motivation. Seeing even a 1% improvement gives your brain dopamine. It says, "This is working. Let's keep going." It fixes mistakes faster because tracking shows you where you are repeating errors. You stop guessing. You start adjusting. It gives you a story. You no longer say, "I am trying to learn." You say, "I have grown from this to this to this." And that story builds belief. Progress is not a feeling. Progress is a record. Track what you do. Track what you learned. Track what worked. And track what didn't. Because your brain may forget what it did last Tuesday, but your progress journal won't. And when you see your own journey written in front of you, you will never doubt your power to learn again. Let me leave you with this final thought. You were never bad at learning. You were never slow. You were never behind. You were simply never shown how. But now you know the truth, the key. You know the map. You know the tools. You know the path. So no more waiting. No more fear. No more saying, "I am not ready." Because from this moment forward, you are the learner. You are the creator. You are the one who transforms knowledge into power. And if you follow even a few of these steps, your future self will look back and say, "That was the day everything changed." Now go learn anything and never stop growing. And that is where our story concludes for today. This was a really deep journey into how our minds work. I am so curious to hear your take on it all. What were your final thoughts? Do you have any lingering questions about why we struggle to learn? Or maybe a personal story about a time you overcame a learning hurdle? Please leave all your opinions, theories, and questions below. I truly love reading them and building this conversation with all of you.